side of working at some of the larger companies in the area. So I think you'll get a lot of really great insight, and it should be a pretty interesting conversation. So glad to have you all.
Great. Okay. Just trying to figure out how close I should be to this thing. Okay, so I just want to cover a tiny bit of background. So I'm Alexander, this is Spencer. We both are at Boyd Financial. We're state and federally licensed fiduciary financial planners with an open architecture concept in our firm. We have a very education-oriented focus, and we're going to cover two components. We're going to cover financial planning 101, just the very basics of how the structure's been set up in America. It has some caveats to it. It is not very user-friendly. If you understand it, you will be very glad you did when you're 50 or 60 years old. The second thing we're going to cover is we're going to cover the compensation structure of companies in our area. So we have a lot of companies around here, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tableau, Oracle, etc. They compensate their employees in some complicated ways. They use stock options, employee stock purchase programs, restricted stock units, different vesting schedules, matches to their 401ks, etc. And if you understand the benefits that these companies use to compensate their employees, you can earn yourself an edge when it comes to negotiating a benefits package. So I think it's going to be important to cover those topics with you. We're going to have many questions. We'll have Q&A halfway through with Spencer. He'll sit down at a table over there, and then at the end, we'll take more questions as well. Okay, so I'll give it to Spencer now. He'll cover the first section.
All right, everyone, so we're going to go through some of the benefits that some of the bigger employers have here. Like Alex said, if you're able to understand what the benefits are, which ones really resonate with you, it'll help you not waste your time interviewing at places that you don't feel like you would fit with, but also give you an edge when you are actually going to negotiate your contract. So we're going to have a matrix here of all of the major employers in the area. If anyone has any questions at any time, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to start from the top with Microsoft. So with Microsoft, you're going to get a Fidelity 401k through them. They actually have one of the best matches in the entire industry. So for every dollar that you put into your 401k at Microsoft, they're going to match you 50 cents on that dollar, up to the IRS limit. So right now the limit is $18,500, which means that Microsoft will give you a free $9,250 per year on top of your salary and stock. Next year that limit is actually being moved to $19,000 a year. So you get an extra $250 a year by just contributing up to the IRS limit. Now the way that an ESPP program or an employee stock purchase program works, for those of you that are unfamiliar, is that every paycheck, just like your 401k, you're going to be contributing money into this pool, and depending by company, every quarter, semi-annually, annually, they're going to purchase company stock, but at a discount. So the ESPP discount for Microsoft is going to be a 10% discount. So at the beginning of the quarter or at the end of the quarter, whichever price is lower, you're going to get a 10% discount on that price. And Microsoft is going to allow you to contribute up to 15% of your salary into the ESPP plan. Now, IRS guidelines say that you can only contribute up to $25,000 max into an ESPP, but for Microsoft, that is not usually an issue for the entry-level positions. You're also going to get a stock grant when you get hired on there, and the stock is going to vest over a 5-year period, and it's going to vest 20% annually, just like clockwork. Moving on down to Amazon. Amazon's is a little interesting. So they're only going to match you 50% up to the first 4% of your salary for their 401k, but their match is going to be in Amazon stock itself. So it's not going to be in whatever funds that you pick in your 401k, it's going to be in Amazon stock. They don't have an ESPP program at Amazon, and their vesting schedule is very back-loaded. So it's going to be annually. The first year you're going to get 5%, the second year you're going to get 15%, and then every 6 months after that you're going to get 20, 20, 20, 20 for the total of 40% the last 2 years. Boeing here, they're not as big of a tech company, but they are one of the biggest employers in the area. They do hire software engineers, so we wanted to have them included as well. Their match is going to be 75 cents for every dollar that you put in, up to 8%. So if you put in 8%, they're going to give you 6. Boeing also does not have any ESPP program or any RSUs that they award. Their salary is a bit higher, but they don't give you any of the stock there that these other companies are going to give you. Next is Expedia. Expedia, they have a 50% match up to the first 6%. So put in 6%, they're going to give you 3% of every dollar that you put in. Their ESPP discount is very powerful. They're going to give you a 15% discount on their stock, and you can contribute up to 10% of your salary there. Expedia doesn't generally give RSUs, but based on your manager or your role, you can be awarded them. But I would not expect to go in and get RSUs granted unless you are going to be in a more senior role. For T-Mobile, their match is a little confusing. They're going to give you 100% up to the first 3%, and then 50% to the next 2. So if you put in 5%, they're going to give you 4 total. They have the exact same ESPP as Expedia does, so you get a 15% discount up to 10% of your salary, and their RSUs are going to grant annually in a 3-year vest cycle. So 33%, 33%, 33% for those RSUs. Facebook, they have a pretty generous match as well. They're going to match you 50% up to 7% of your salary. They also do not have an ESPP at Facebook, but their RSUs are going to vest quarterly, and it's going to be 25% each year, so about 2% of the stock is going to vest every quarter, a little bit more. With Google, they have the exact same match as Microsoft, so 50 cents on every single dollar that you put in up to the limit. They do not have an ESPP program there either, but their stock, depending on your role, starts vesting immediately up to about 3 months when you get there, and it's going to vest every month on a 25 annual rate. So you'll start getting those shares to vest as soon as you start in most cases. Tableau, they're going to give you a match of 100% up to the first $2,500 that you put into your 401k. Theirs is not the same as other companies where they have a percent match, but it's going to just be up to the first $2,500 that you guys contribute there. Tableau's ESPP is very powerful. You can get a 15% discount and contribute up to 15% of your salary there. And their stock is also vesting every quarter, like Facebook, so you'll get about 2% every quarter there. For Starbucks, they have a very strong company match, 100% up to 6% of your salary, but the ESPP is not as powerful there, so you're going to get a 5% discount up to 10% of your salary there. And their RSUs are going to vest over a 4-year period, annually 25% each year. These numbers are up to date as of today, but they are always subject to change. It's an ongoing conversation that we always have with our clients. And does anyone have any questions about any of these company benefits here or how you can strategically use this to your advantage? Yes.
Can a link to this information be made available to us?
Yes, we can do that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I've actually heard a lot of cautionary tales about using like the stock options, like the RSU vesting schedules, as a way to get people in the door, especially with companies like Amazon, because it is so backloaded. Most people only stay in an industry for about 2 years before they find another position within tech. And so Amazon and other companies that have similar vesting schedules will use it to make it seem like your compensation package is going to be huge, but really they're only out a small portion because you're likely not going to be the 3rd year or 4th year.
Yep, that's an excellent point. The average tenure of an Amazon employee is only 18 months, so they're not even generally getting to that second
It's not
vest.
just rumors.
It's not just rumors. Amazon especially has this short time window. But with Amazon, you also do get a cash bonus your first 2 years.
Okay.
So they're going to slowly wean you off that cash bonus as your shares start to vest if you do decide to stay with the company for that long. So great point there. Any other questions here? Yep. Sorry, I couldn't see the...
So the RSU vesting schedule, so that is about how often your options are compounding. Can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So when the company hires you, so let's just use Microsoft for example. Let's say that they're going to give you $100,000 worth of RSUs. So every year after your hire date, you're going to be awarded with $20,000 of Microsoft stock.
What does RSU stand for?
Restricted stock unit. Great question. Did that answer your question?
Well, my follow-up question is, based on the miracle of compound interest, it seems like how frequently it's compounded is a very big factor in how much money that's actually going to give you, based on your initial input and based on your minimum time. Do you have a full little program that calculates that? You say, I'm going to be at Amazon for a year and a half, and I'm going to put in this upfront.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And the way that the RSUs work is they're not exactly earning interest the way you might think. They're going to award you a set number of shares So let's say that you got hired on Amazon, your stock is trading at about $1,600 a share, and they say, all right, you're gonna get 70 shares awarded to you over these 4 years. So
Oh, so it's
it is linear,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay, okay.
So it's just a set amount of shares that you get that are gonna vest over the period with annual reviews at most of these companies where they are gonna grant you more shares generally. Great question. Any other questions here?
So in theory, you could wind up with more than shares than what's initially planned.
So you, like, if you get a bonus awarded?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really one of the major benefits of working at these tech companies is that they're always gonna be awarding stock or cash bonuses to their employees as a way to help retain them.
And just as a note, it would be fair to point out that stock loses value as well.
That is a very fair point, yep. So you are always at the risk of stock going down. Some of the people that got hired on at Amazon when it was $2,000 a share are probably wishing that they got hired on right now because they would get a few more shares awarded to them because the share price is lower. So that's a very fair point there. Any other questions or comments here? All right, great. So I'm going to pass this on over to Alexander, but if anyone would like to come and have a personal one-on-one chat, I'll be over at the round table with the red chairs over there. Happy to field any questions or talk about your specific situation while he goes through financial planning 101.
All right, great. Okay, so moving forward, I'm just going to overview the basic system of financial planning 101, our tax structure, different forms of accounts, liquidity, and how it all fits together, and how you can develop a portfolio that's going to serve you to hit your goals in the most efficient way, minimizing taxes as we go. Okay, so just like a structure, there are multiple levels to a financial plan. It starts with a strong foundation. If you don't have one, and emergencies happen, like your car breaks down, or your rent jumps up a bunch each month, you might have to pull from a retirement account, which is not ideal because there could be taxes and penalties. So we start with a foundational level. We call it liquid savings. It's just money in a bank account. Liquid means that you can get at this money very rapidly. So it's not in a retirement account like a 401k, something you go to an ATM, get the money out. We recommend as a baseline 3 to 6 months of daily living expenses in a liquid savings account. That being said, money at this level, the banks are not paying you very much. Savings account, if you get a good one, they 2%. Inflation historically is 2.25. So even though your cash is growing at a numerical level, it is annually losing purchasing power. So the cost of goods are increasing faster than that 2% interest would earn you. This is how, 40 years ago, a gallon of gas was under $1, right? You hear your grandma or grandpa tell you the story. We've all heard it, right? Okay, so the second component to a liquid savings level, we call it risk management. It's essentially different forms of bulletproofing your family against adverse scenarios, like losing your job, becoming disabled. Life insurance is another one. This comes into effect through benefits or group benefits through work, but personal policies can be added on top of it. For an example, if there is one person in the family that's making all the money, the other person is stay at home, and then there are kids involved, not a bad idea to make sure that that one person that's working has income replacement insurance in case they lose their job, or disability, or life insurance in the worst of scenarios, so that the whole family isn't out of luck if something happens to that one individual. Okay, but we will move on to the next level. So, of course, level one, very short term. Not beating the market, not beating inflation. It's a good part for a little bit of money, but not too much. It's not going to help you hit your long-term, like 30-year retirement goals. Okay, liquid investments. You can hold almost any investment in a level 2 account. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, alternative investments, all types of investments. When you get RSUs and when your RSUs vest, they'll be in a level 2 account. When it grows, you will pay short-term and long-term capital gains taxes based upon the appreciation of your shares when you sell them. They'll have a cost basis associated with them. So if someone wants to buy a home within a year, perhaps putting that down payment money into the stock market isn't a great idea. So we'd recommend, if goals are under a couple years, potentially, the last thing I'd want to see is my client put a bunch of money into the stock market, have a dip happen, like what just happened, now they can't afford the down payment on their home that they planned with. That's not a great scenario. So, but for a longer term goal, statistically, historically, the stock market has averaged 7% per year over the last 100 years. That being said, it is a rocky ride. On average, I'll ask a question, I'll get a couple answers. How often do you think the stock market has a 10% drop? Anyone want to guess? Anyone bold?
If I remember right, it's around every 7 years.
Okay, a 10% drop every 7 years?
If I
Okay.
remember the cycle correctly.
Okay. Any more guesses? Anyone else who's bold out there?
Like 6 months.
Every 6 months, okay, polar opposites, okay.
It's right out.
7. All right, anyone else?
More often than that. It goes up again.
You're on the right track there. So there is a 10% drop historically every 10 months, and it is not uncommon that there are years where there are multiple 10% drops from the peak in a single year. This year is one of them. We've had 2 10% drops so far this year. That being said, most years that have a 10% drop, they still end positive. So it is a rocky ride, and historically, your average investor has only captured 2.58% rate of return when the stock market averages north of 7. So your average individual is a terrible investor. Statistically, if you were to do the opposite of what the general population did, your portfolio would grow at a far more rapid rate. So there's a lot of statistics that goes into this, but there's also emotional behavioral finance. And neuroscience studies have shown us that when people are notified that they just lost money, it triggers the same part in their brain as physical pain. So losing money is twice as detrimental than the positive of gaining that same amount of money. So people tend to panic, and therefore the results are not that great. Okay, so moving on from this level, this red line here is our tax line. So as we move up in the different hierarchies, we lose liquidity, but what we gain is powerful benefits, tax benefits. The government gives subsidies to us to invest for our futures, for several different types of investments. So the third level, tax advantage assets, they're just what they sound like. They are tax advantage, they receive benefits over standard investment accounts. Roth IRAs are one of them. 529 plans, it's a college savings account. It can be used for PhD programs, grad school, private high school. It can be used for generational wealth strategies as well. The money, once it's inside of it, grows tax-free forever, no capital gains, and when you take it out, as long as it's used for qualified educational expenses, there's no taxes either. So paying for school out of student loans, if you have kids and are planning to do that, for sure look into this ahead of time. Municipal bonds, right now, they're not the most powerful of investments because we are in a low interest rate environment that is slowly increasing. They are an ideal investment in a high interest rate environment that is decreasing, but the money that is paid back in coupon payments are tax-free. So when people are of extremely high tax brackets, it makes them pencil out numerically better. But it is based on the creditworthiness of whatever municipality you're investing in. So if you invest in Bellevue, for example, where our office is, you get a very low rate of return because it's very safe. It has some of the world's richest people, some of the world's richest companies all paying taxes. But if you were to invest in Detroit, you get a far higher interest rate, but you may never see your money again. They did default in 2011, they might default again, so not recommended. But in the future, it's something to look out for. As our interest rate increases, it's increased multiple times and it's continuing to increase. Another type is types of life insurance. The IRS says that if you have an investment account and you attach a small life insurance policy to your investment account, now all your investments grow tax-free forever. You don't have to die, you can pull the money out. You can use it for whatever you want. There are certain guidelines. It has to be structured in the proper way. If it's not structured properly, it is one of the worst investments anyone could ever make in their entire life. If it is structured properly, it can be one of the strongest investments someone can use in their entire life. We generally use it when people cross the income threshold and are now no longer to do a Roth IRA. Okay, so moving on, all investments in this account will cover the taxation benefit that they get. They follow the same system in each level. So the last level is retirement. So these are your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457 plans, traditional IRA accounts. So you will see these when you may already have one. You might already have an old one out there, and you're likely about to get a new one if you get hired for any of those companies out there. So this is a type of retirement plan through your employer. Generally, the employer matches it too if it's one of the more major ones and not a startup. And then we can also set these sort of things up for small business owners, which is pretty cool. People generally, if they run a small business, they don't think they can have an employer-sponsored plan, but they can. Okay, so we'll cover the different tax benefits of each type. All right. The 3 tax advantages that we can get, first one is pre-tax contribution bonus benefit. So if you make $100,000, just to make the math easy, you put $10,000 into a retirement account, a level 4 retirement account, you get a pre-tax contribution, which means you'd only be taxed as if you made $90,000 that year. So you just simultaneously saved for retirement and saved on taxes this year. That's why these are so popular. It's a powerful subsidy that the government gives us to incentivize us to save for our futures, keep us off of welfare, etc. Okay, the second one, tax deferred or free growth. If an investment account has this benefit, when it grows, you don't have to pay short-term or long-term capital gains tax. So in a horse race, if you look at a level 2 account versus a level 4 account, level 2 you pay short-term and long-term capital gains tax, level 4 you don't. The level 4 account's gonna win every time because you don't have to realize your tax gains on your appreciation throughout your life. Okay, the last one, just like it sounds, tax-free distributions. When you take the money out of the account, you don't have to pay any taxes at all. Okay. So moving on to the benefits that the 401k and all level 4 accounts receive. They receive the first 2. Pre-tax contribution bonus, saves you on taxes this year. It grows tax deferred, meaning you don't have to pay short-term or long-term capital gains taxes. But when you take the money out of a 401k, you will pay ordinary income taxes on it as if an employer paid you that money in that year you took it out. I have seen people do this before where they cash out their 401k and they're still working and making 150 grand and their 401k might have 300 grand in it. Well, congratulations, you just put yourself up to the tax level of a $450,000 earner that year. And you're gonna get hit with the hardest tax bill you've ever seen in your life. And you could potentially just blow up your retirement in a single decision. So we've seen that, that's not cool. Okay, so moving on to tax advantaged assets. They have an alternate form of taxation. When you put the money in, you don't get that pre-tax contribution benefit, but once the money is inside of the account, it grows tax-free forever. It could grow 5 times, 10 times over your investment horizon. You will not pay taxes on the growth. Then when you take it out, there is no taxes either. So this is a level 3 account, or a TAA. So this is why you've probably heard of a Roth IRA. Can you raise your hands if you've heard of a Roth IRA before? Okay, so we got about maybe 55, 60% or so. This is what my mom did. My mom was a tax law professor. When I had my first job working at a pizza restaurant, she confiscated 50% of my earnings and put it into a Roth IRA for me. I was salty, but now I know why she did it, and it was a great move. So I've been doing that every year since. If you get it started early, when you still can, before you make too much money to be ineligible. Right now it's $120,000. If your total comp is above $120,000, you're ineligible to contribute. If you're married, that ups it to $199,000 as a household. If you make more than that as a household, you're ineligible to contribute. If you start this early with your first investment dollars where you're still in a low tax bracket, it will become a powerful ace up your sleeve later in life. You will be very glad that you did it. It is hard to set up a portfolio in a perfect way, just guessing by yourselves. So what we find is people where they're in the sweet spot to do this type of investment, these are this age group where they also think investing is something for 50-year-olds or is important just when I'm getting closer to retirement, and that's not an ideal scenario. Okay, so moving on to a breakdown. We're going to do a numerical breakdown comparison between how to structure portfolios. So the first version, qualified plan, IRA, 401k, level 4 account, all your money goes towards a level 4 account with a strong employer match and good market performance over the next 30 years. Let's say that gets up to $2 million by the time you hit retirement age. A 5% withdrawal rate every year in retirement is statistically shown to be a sustainable withdrawal rate. Your accounts should grow at about that amount, plus or minus, depending on the years. What that means is you're living off of the interest rather than eating into the principal. If you try to take out 10% every year, you're likely to kill the account off because you're not giving it a chance to grow, and you'll run out of money and you'll still have a decade left of life. So that's what happens when people have an unsustainable withdrawal rate, about 4 4 or 5% is shown to be the right answer. So what that would be, 5% of $2 million is $100,000. That puts you in the 28% bracket approximately. Your net amount will be $72,000 post-taxes. Your net annual income, $72,000. Here's where the second side comes in. Only half your money goes towards the 401k. 5% as well, $50,000. We're in a progressive tax system, so the lower your ordinary income is, the less you will pay on taxes if you look at how it fits in the brackets. That would put you at $37,500. This is where the other half goes. We put it into a Roth IRA or a TAA, another form of tax-advantaged asset. Some 401k plans allow you to do a Roth 401k as well, so you can have a double-sided within one account, so to speak. This has been taxed. That's why it's at $800,000 instead of $1 million like the other one. Okay, 5% withdrawal rate. This is the rule. It doesn't matter the account balance. This is approximately the right amount to take as a sustainable withdrawal rate. That would give us $40,000. No taxes are due upon taking distributions from this account because it's tax advantaged. Real $40,000. So you can generate more money in retirement by using both sides of the tax fence. So this is the basics of why you should set up a multifaceted investment portfolio this way. But that being said, we are in some of the lowest tax times that we've seen. We're in 77-year tax lows. Our country, we are now in more than $21 trillion in debt. We are likely to be in the lowest tax time that I live in. Honestly, I don't think it will be lower for the rest of my life. And as our debt increases as a country, one of the most powerful ways our government could pay that off or realistically shrink the deficit to some capacity is to increase taxes. There are trillions of dollars in the 401k world that have never been taxed before. So all it takes is a stroke of the pen right before retirement for you, tax brackets jump up, and now you're living off of far less than $77,000 or $72,000 if all your money is put into the IRA or 401k side. But as we have changes of administration, as it toggles back and forth, as different sides win, they change the tax laws. We just had a change. We will have many more throughout your lifetime. When we are in high tax times, you can take a lower amount out of the taxable side. And then when we're in low tax times, you can take a higher amount out of the taxable side, and you can save the tax-free side for later. So what that allows you to do is, depending on the tax brackets of the future, if you have your portfolio structured using both sides of the tax fence, it allows you to control where you fall in the tax brackets. You can control how much taxes you're going to have to pay, and then later in life, if you want to have a big purchase, which most people do, like a retirement home or something like that, or a lot of traveling, you can take money out of the tax-free side and not rapidly escalate your ordinary income tax for that year. So it gives you a lot of power, but it does have to be structured early. Is that all making sense? Anybody have any questions? I know, we just dropped a lot of information on you.
It's kind of a big question, though.
All right.
I think you sort of touched on it about increasing taxes on unearned income. So yeah, we have like probably the greatest wealth disparity globally that we've seen in a long time. What do you see as some kind of interesting strategies to help increase circulation of wealth without chopping off heads and starting over?
Oh, well, that's a tough question. I think that one's beyond my pay scale.
You're not paying me.
Yeah, that's the big question. That's the one that people seem to have a really hard time answering, don't they? There's a lot of ideas out there. A lot have been tried, and a lot have ended in catastrophe. And it's going to take a lot of minds to come up with the answer to that one. Mine's not enough, I don't think.
But I think, yeah, like taxing unearned income is a pretty good example because of, the miracle of compound interest really does increase that distance between, like, if you're paying student loans, which I am,
Yeah.
you're getting poorer all the time.
Yes, you are.
All the time. Like, just letting things go as they are.
Yeah. Yeah, student loans are another thing. I do think that there are certain things that should happen that can help where our country is. I do think basic finance should be covered in high school. People should know what they're getting themselves into with student loans. You have 17-year-olds making decisions. They can't get out of it via bankruptcy anymore. If they take on a couple $100,000 of debt, growing at 7-point-something% interest rate, which is more than the market can deliver on a regular basis. If they aren't extremely careful about what education they do and find something to become an expert at that companies desperately want and are willing to pay a lot of money for, they have just created essentially a Sarlacc pit for themselves to try to crawl out of. Yeah.
Yeah, that pit is gonna expand if we don't do something.
And it is, yeah. So this is why education is so important. The educational structure in our country, for some reason they decided not to tell about interest rates of student loans, how to balance a checkbook, how to budget, how behavioral finance falls into it all. Credit scores completely omitted. Basically, like some of the most important components of adulting, they decided just, right? But I know everything about, parallelograms. Yeah. I saw someone's hand up over there.
Yes, I don't believe you mentioned foreign investments anywhere over there, or did I miss it? If I did miss it, how do these come into play when you're trying to develop your portfolio?
Can you run that by me one more time? Foreign
So
investment?
foreign investments, for example, you could be investing in foreign currency, you could be investing in foreign country. I don't think so. We covered that aspect over here, but
Yeah,
the
okay.
point is, how does that come into the whole portfolio situation? If you're basing everything on what's happening over here, you may be a little bit on that volatile situation when things change.
Yeah, so when we develop investment portfolios for people, we analyze the international and emerging market landscape very carefully. There is a tremendous amount of growth to be had in countries like China or India, Brazil, Russia, etc. We do think that it's an important component as the world becomes more developed. Right now, America itself is 52% of the global stock markets. We're a major player in the global scene, but by 2040 or 2050, it may be more evenly spread between Europe, Asia, America, more like a trinity. So we do think that there is extreme growth potential overseas. There's also extreme volatility and risk. So internationals and emerging markets this year lost an extreme amount. If you look at any index, some are down like 25, 30%. I mean, it's been a hammering. So when people are very young, we like to add that as a component of a retirement portfolio. But when people are very close to retirement and they want to be a little bit more conservative and they want to have the potential for dramatic hits near the retirement age in this red zone, then usually we stick to investments which are a little bit more steady, so to speak. Yeah.
Is there
Good question.
Oh, sorry, just leading off of that. How about taxation on foreign investments?
So it depends on the country.
Okay.
It depends. We have tax treaties with other countries. We have a tax treaty with India. Usually, if we have a tax treaty, and let me put out a disclaimer here. I'm not an international tax advisor, but we do have a lot of international clients. If you've been taxed in a country already for the gains of whatever investment happened in that country, and you're going to bring it over here to America. Under that situation, if we have a tax treaty with them, you will not face double taxation. You'll be taxed only once. So if you did not pay taxes over there, you will pay taxes over here. If you did pay taxes over there, you will not pay taxes over here. But it is country specific. So that's when it gets quite complicated, and that's when I refer people to my international tax CPA.
No.
Yeah. But
Thank you.
I saw your hand earlier.
Yeah, you had specifically brought up, or it was brought up, discussing student loans.
Yes.
What do you recommend is the best strategy for tackling student loans, whether you have, say, 6 or 7, or whether you have 1 or 2? Is it best to consolidate them? Like, what kind of strategies would you say to tackle that ridiculously wonderful choice?
So first of all, it depends on the interest rate of your student loans. It depends on how much money someone is saving, how much money someone is making. It depends on, so there are some people where their student loans are so low interest that it mathematically makes sense to try to invest your way out of that debt if it's a really low interest rate. If it's a higher interest rate, I mean, if I were to strip all emotion away, I would say if the market historically does 7%, if your loan is less than that, you should always invest instead of pay it off. That is the math, but don't take that. Don't quote me on that. Because there's also an emotional component. and there's sequence of returns in the market, whereas your loan is steady against you. So I usually say if your loan is above 5.5%, I would say prioritize it against investment accounts, as long as there's the caveat of at least contributing to your 401k at a company if they give you a match, to get the match. People don't think of this. Some people say, oh, I'd love to get the match, but I have the student loan, and I'd rather pay off my student loan.
It's free money.
But they haven't thought if you contribute, you take the free money, you get the benefit of that. Even if you take a withdrawal from your 401k, you'll be taxed and penalized, but even with that free money added in, you'll end up with more money to even pay off your loan. So it's a very roundabout way to actually pay off your loan faster. That being said, probably still wouldn't recommend it on most scenarios, but we take a very detailed approach, a deep dive into each person's scenario. We want to figure out what is going on a quantitative level, and then who are they from a qualitative perspective and emotional perspective, and how do they view this whole topic, because that's where the value really comes from. The value really comes from not just understanding the data, but being able to translate it into something that is compatible on all levels with someone else. And that's really how people, that's how people have good outcomes and hit their goals. So, yeah.
Is there a material difference between a 401k and a 403b? I have a lot of retirement money wrapped up in that as a former university employee.
Got you. Okay, so here's the major difference. A 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement plan, a level 4 account from a for-profit company. A 403b is the same level, same tax benefits, same taxation. It's just for a non-profit company, a school, hospital, etc. Right? So also, both of these accounts, if you have old ones out there and you have a new account and a new job, you have multiple choices. You can roll your old 401ks into your new 401k, which we generally don't recommend. You can keep them out there in the nether. Every once in a while, we have found that if you leave accounts out there for X number of years, some states have confiscated them as abandoned property if you don't make sure your address is really correct. We had a problem, especially with California for some reason. So we don't recommend that either. Current 401ks, old 401ks, they have restricted investment options. So what we do is we analyze the most compelling investment options in someone's current 401k. We analyze what's going on in the old employer-sponsored plans that they're no longer contributing to. With the old ones, we can do tax-free rollovers into an IRA, traditional IRA, individual retirement account. You can build any type of investment portfolio you want without the restrictions that a 401k has. So you choose the powerful investments in a 401k, you fill in the gaps in a complementary fashion with the traditional IRAs, where when they fit together, they're quite a bit more powerful than they are on their own. That's just one way of creating more efficiencies within someone's portfolio. Yeah.
Does your, if you have an old retirement account that didn't work very long, do you have to be vested with respect to that account to roll it over into a current company's retirement?
So good question, great question actually. The money that you have contributed to your 401k will always be vested. The match that they contributed may or may not be vested depending on the vesting schedule within the plan documents and how many years you've been there, etc. But I can say the money that you put in will actually be vested. So you might not get 100%, but you'll probably get more than 50.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? All right.
Outside of like an emergency fund, like, do you have any recommendations of how much cash you should sample, like, with?
So that's a great question. We have conversations about this all the time. I think from a baseline, bank accounts are over time losing to inflation. They're not beating the market. So ideally, as low amount of money as you have possible within your portfolio should be sitting there. But that being said, we require liquid access to accounts. So I would say calculate how much you spend on an average month. Maybe look at your bank statements or credit cards or however you pay money. See what do you spend on an average month, and then take that and then times that by somewhere between 3, 4, 5, or 6. But there are some people that say, okay, I don't sleep well unless I have $20,000 in cash at all times. That's my safety level. But I've met people that say, I don't sleep well unless I have $250,000 in cash. Even though I know that that is not statistically the right choice over time, that money's losing to inflation, but that's just what they want, right? So I would say take the qualitative, how you feel about it, over the quantitative. But yeah, between 3 to 6 months is the quantitative answer. Yeah. except for if you plan on buying a home the next year. Then you can kind of start stacking it up for down payment. Yeah.
Actually, prompts one more question.
Okay.
For big purchases, because most like bank accounts, like savings accounts and things like that, aren't really that great of an investment, what is the best way to save or build towards? Like, is there any secret that you know, or any accounts specifically that you know that are really great for building towards, like purchasing a home or purchasing something home-esque in scale?
Got you. So those 4 levels of accounts, there's an exclusion, there's an exemption in retirement accounts where you can take $10,000 out and you don't have to pay any penalties on it if you're a first-time home buyer. That's not very much money around here. That's the IRS rules. But I would say a level 2 brokerage account, investment account is the best option with generally a risk-adverse portfolio. So something that's pretty crash resistant, that's just going to plug and chug at a greater rate than a
So
bank
you're just
account
using
would.
it for a savings vehicle.
Yeah, just like an extremely high yield savings account. So sometimes we have fixed investments, which are they're like fixed at 4.5% for a couple years or something like that. It's just very baseline, Okay, good question. Anything else? Great. Well, Spencer and I are going to be around here. We're probably going to grab a cup of coffee before we head back. We'd love to meet you, chat one-on-one. We're very educational. Our process, if people want to ask us any questions, we don't charge them. We'll love to sit down and chat, and we'll help educate you on any topic you want to learn about for no price whatsoever. And yeah, we're looking forward to meeting all of you right now.